I'm Danielle Morrill. I'm the GM of Meltano, and I'm really excited to be talking to you today. It's been a little while since we've done a group conversation, about 6 weeks. So you might have seen I've stuck some questions in here that I think you should ask me. So if you want to claim any of them, feel free, please. But otherwise, we'll get started. Well, Mel, you're still typing. So I'll just give you my first question, which is, how's the SaaS offering going? Why did you decide to do that? So if you go to the front page of meltano.com, you'll see that we're now doing this thing where we have a create your account button. You may also have noticed, if you fill it out, that we don't really create an account for you right away. So we are doing one of my favorite startup activities. We are hand cranking something. So we are setting up instances of Meltano for each user. And the experience is like SaaS in the sense that they don't have to do all the configuration and all the installation stuff, but it's not fully SaaS because it's not self-service, which I think a lot of people kind of identify with the SaaS experience. What's really awesome about this is each account is set up with its own instance. So we're able to keep everybody's data completely separate, and then they get a subdomain. So you actually get a namespace you can go back to. And we decided to do it because then you can share your account. So if I set up an account for Kyla, it can be kyla.meltanodata.com, and then she can get in there and be like, oh man, I just made some really sweet dashboards. I want to share this with my entire team. And then our MAUI numbers go up quite a bit because Kyla sends it to her team, and 10 people get on there and they start to play around with the dashboards and collaborate with her. So for us, the reason we decided to do this is we've got to move the needle on MAUI faster, and doing it one person at a time is just too slow. So that's kind of what's going on there. I'm going to go back to your questions now. Mel, do you want to verbalize your question?
Certainly. Thank you so much, Danielle. With the SaaS offering come security and security compliance requirements from customers. So I think taking a comment that Sid made yesterday during our group conversation about iterative approach towards compliance and security risk, how is your team starting to address that?
Yeah, so we are setting up each account individually. And so that means we do get on a call with the customer. And so if they do have really specific security requests, especially if they're in banking or finance or in an area where they have a IT checklist, they're probably not our customer right now. We're really focused on the startup founder customer, in part because they generally don't even have a whole lot of data. They're just trying to get something going. So the unfortunate trade-off here is it's not that they don't care about it at all. And it's not that we're not providing a secure solution. We're just not necessarily reaching the highest levels of compliance quite yet. So this is definitely not an enterprise grade security situation. Definitely more like a startup situation where we just tell them, look, this is how we're setting it up. If you're comfortable, awesome. You still own all your data. If you're not comfortable, we also understand that. And then I think once we get to a point where we have product market fit, we're going to immediately want to address some of those issues, especially because some of our customers are going to grow. So hopefully we'll get to work with some earlier stage startups and they'll say, Danielle, that was fine when we were 6 people, but now I have a sales team and tens of millions of dollars of revenue. That's like the dream scenario, that they're really successful and then we do those things kind of grow together.
So then you could ostensibly use the GitLab control framework that we've built out for our GitLab.com SaaS in our environment to maybe dog food to help support some of your compliance efforts.
Yeah, at some point maybe we'll do that. I think right now that's probably just a little more heavy lifting than we have.
Right, certainly.
But certainly that's probably one of the first places we'd love to look, since we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. GitLab's already figured out these things. It's great to be able to leverage that. And that's one of the really sweet parts about building Meltano inside of GitLab.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Danielle.
You're welcome.
Maybe Danielle, talk a bit about how we're making sure that we legally don't enter into an obligation with the customer and how we set expectations with the customer.
Yeah, so there's 2 ways we're doing that. One is in the conversation we're having, but we also have a terms of service that they have to accept, where we make it very clear that we don't own any of their data. They're responsible for it. They're responsible for what they connect. Obviously, customers could have data that we don't necessarily want, like PII. And so we're letting them know they're responsible for whatever they decide to put inside of Meltano.
Yeah, and maybe if there's one action, maybe we should review the terms of service, make sure we spell out in that this is like very early, it's alpha stage, we're not guaranteeing anything, and you might very well expose data, and we don't recommend it for storing PI and things like that. I think those should be front and center, both in the conversation and in what they accept.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And we have an issue we're working through right now with that. I guess I'll ask some more of my seated questions. So is it really SaaS Meltano is doing? I filled out the form and noticed you didn't immediately give me an account. It's been fun kind of exploring what the definition of SaaS is with different people. I would say this is probably closer to a managed service in the sense that we are setting everything up. But for all intents and purposes, the terminology of SaaS we're using from a marketing perspective to just have people be thinking, okay, I don't have to do anything to get going with the software. I can just use it out of the box. And we're going to hand crank an experience that's as close to that out of the box experience as possible. And that also forces us to figure out where is it bumpy for these users. So as we do the onboarding call, instead of having so many of our support conversations be about installation and setup, now we can have them be about connecting data sources and getting dashboards working, and we can work on making those experiences better because we've already taken care of the first part of the process. So it is kind of pseudo SaaS. It's more like a managed service today.
Does it make sense to maybe tailor the thank you message? Like, yeah, we got your subscription. We're going to process it in the following days, etc.
Yes. So right now what it tells them is that we'll be in touch within 1 to 2 business days to set up their account in the confirmation message at the end of the form. And then we send them an email, usually within 12 to 24 hours, letting them know, like, it's a personal email from me telling them, this is Danielle, I'm setting up your instance now. I'd love to get a time on your calendar. So they have an experience of having constant contact from us just from the time that they submit that form. That's a great suggestion. How likely is it that Meltano will hit the 1,000 Maui goal? I think it's a long shot, but it's awfully fun. I'm a gambler personally. So if I wanted to answer this question very rationally, I would say 60-40. But I have a lot of control over the outcome. So this is more like poker than roulette. So we're working super hard. We've already got 55 leads. So the math we're thinking about here is we're about 300 right now. We need to get 700 more. And we're not going to get them one at a time. So obviously 55 leads is great. What we really want is we want to get all those people going with Meltano and then have an average of 2 to 3 people that they share it with. So maybe they make a dashboard and they send it to their investors in their investor update email. Maybe they make a dashboard for their sales team. But there are definitely people they want to communicate with who don't need to set anything up. They just want to see the outcome. So the idea is get 2,000 leads, have about 40% of them actually log in, engage with us and try it, and then have them each share with 2 to 3 people. And that's kind of roughly how we get there. We've only been promoting this since Wednesday. I think we sent a couple tweets and a blog post right before Thanksgiving and generated over 50 leads from that. So that was awesome. So we have been really surprised so far by the demand and the engagement. So I think I would say it's still going to be tough to get to 1,000, but we're going to do absolutely everything possible. And I see a path to building a better engine. So I'm cautiously optimistic. And since I'm the one processing all the leads and emailing all these people and hearing about their needs and their enthusiasm, when I don't look at the numbers and I just focus on how much they want Meltano, it makes me feel like we're definitely building something people want, which is exciting.
Danielle, if someone were to build something on that server, like how is access restricted to that server? Like is that login and password, or how does that work?
Yeah, so there's 2 levels of access. So at the server level, only Meltano has access, and it's through our team DigitalOcean account. At the instance level, it's HT access protected. So we didn't do any user management, but you would need to have the login and the password. And we have that
so
in one
just
password.
just like it's on the web application server, HTTPS.
Yes. Yep.
HTTP basic. Cool.
Yep. We also have a Meltano like kind of meta instance set up right now. Actually, wonder if I could log into that. But anyway, we have an instance that you all can play with. And if you're curious to play with Meltano, our first sales call yesterday was actually with an internal member of the team. It was Mark Cesario, who's in enterprise sales. You are giving us an incredible gift when you give us 30 minutes of your time to practice our customer discovery and onboarding process, and we will treat you just like a customer. So if you do have interesting stuff you want to dig into, Mark had some really cool projects just around how he manages the workflow of his leads. Just because you're a GitLabber and not a startup founder doesn't mean we don't want to help you, and you let us practice, and you tend to be our friendliest audience. So please do sign up on that forum. We would love to help you. And it's nice to have a friendly face. And it's also cool to look at GitLab data because we actually, we understand it a little bit more than someone else's external business data. So I will post in the show notes afterwards a link if anyone would like to log into meltano.meltanodata.com. But I think for the sake of the live stream, I'm not going to put that on here right now.
Yeah, but that's an additional 50 Mauis if everyone here logs in.
That's right.
Is the entire team involved with onboarding new people?
So right now, Mikhail's creating the process for building the instances and training Ben, and I'm doing the onboarding calls and people are shadowing me. So basically Mikhail and I are training everybody else. So eventually everybody can do it.
Yeah.
And in fact, Meltano, sorry, go ahead.
That might turn into be the most helpful thing, because like if you onboard people on your own product and then stuff doesn't work and you're an engineer, you tend to go back, fix it in anger immediately, and then turn it around really quickly. So that might make for a very short iteration loop.
Yeah, we actually had our first one yesterday. We're recording videos of all the calls. And in fact, I just found out meltano.meltanodata.com is not password protected. So you can go ahead and just visit that domain if you want to check it out. And we've connected a couple of extractors, so you can just go straight to the dashboard view and start playing. This was just set up, so it doesn't have like a bunch of things in here yet, but this is a fun sandbox. And what we do is we just wipe this sandbox every day. So play with it, it's fine. There's nothing here that you can hurt, and it just has default connections to our own GitLab issues and Google Analytics, which is fine to be public. So you can play. Let's see, what else did I not answer of my own questions? All right, I'll just keep going with this. What is the most challenging thing facing the Meltano team right now? I think iteration is still really hard. I think we're still struggling to break things down into small enough pieces. I'm sure there's people here who can relate to that experience. Especially now that we're starting to do sales calls, I think we have this very human desire for everything to kind of be perfect. And I think, the struggle for us is that perfect is the enemy of good is the phrase. And it's so true, so many details that people notice. So in the call with Mark yesterday, he said a couple times, oh, that just wasn't intuitive. I couldn't quite figure that out. And I think it's so important to just, each of those spots, like what can we do so the next sales call is better? Like what can we ship today so that tomorrow when I have a sales call, it's better, rather than waiting until next week, or I'm trying to solve a big solution. And we see all the flaws. We know we could build anything. We talk about it on our team all the time. Like this team can build absolutely anything. And so it's really tempting to build the best thing. And so sometimes it's hard to just dial it back to just little incremental changes. I know we're having iteration office hours as a company now, and I think it's really awesome because I think probably my biggest learning since joining GitLab is just how unnatural iteration can be. And I'm a startup founder and I have done it, but it's still unnatural. It's still hard. It's still something you want to make it perfect. You want to hone your craft, especially the longer I do this, the more I think about it like a craft, and actually I have to push back against my own inclination. So that is definitely a challenge. Just seeing if anybody else wants to add any questions. You're all very invited. And there's not really any taboo question.
Are your team members encouraged to how can we make this better before the next sales call? Like getting in that pace instead of a weekly or bi-weekly pace?
Yeah, and in fact, I don't know, Dawa, if you'd be willing to chime in here, but we just talked about this a little bit today. Do you want to talk a little about kind of the way we're thinking about that?
Yeah, of course. That's exactly the pace we want to get into. Of course, I had to experience going from a 1 month cycle at GitLab to now 1 week cycle at Meltano, which is already a little bit tricky to kind of wrap your head around that and really not spending too much time talking about things and just kind of going straight for a solution. And now with the team, we are very much aware that we have sales calls every day, and everyone should be better than the one that came before it. So we know the urgency, we're aware of the urgency, but it's still a little bit unnatural to really tell ourselves, okay, do whatever you can get done in a few hours to make the next one better, even if it might not scale, even if this and that. And of course, that's part of that iteration, which might come naturally. But that's absolutely the goal. And I and the team are going to be working on getting us more comfortable with that way of working, even if it means that we'll create tons of follow-up issues of stuff we'll need to address to make certain things scale. But because we cannot afford to have too many of these sales calls not result in an actually working Meltano instance. So faster is better than fast is more important than perfect in this case.
Great.
One thing I'll share really quickly is just kind of how we're working is interesting. So obviously GitLab has all these processes set up and it's really amazing, and you kind of forget how much detail goes into figuring these things out. But for every single user, we have to create a issue to get them set up. And there's so many steps to creating a great experience for this person. The most important thing is these related issues, which were created after our first conversation with Mark yesterday. So obviously all of these get linked back to the Epic for hosted account setups. We have more than 55 leads. Every single one of them could generate 5 issues for us. So this is great for us. These are some examples of things we've run into so far. And you can see how small they are. It's like clarifying how to set up Docker, clarifying tooltips, clarifying forms. It's not, big pieces of work. It's just little details. So this is just one example of what that looks like. I think there is one more Danielle seated question. So I heard you had a first team get together in Denver a couple weeks ago. Any highlights? This is just so self-serving, but I will tell you about Meltano Assemble, which is what we're calling it. I think it's because of Autobots, but I'm actually not quite sure where the name came from. But we did get together in Denver. Was it Avengers? Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Autobots. Now you know how old I am. So we did get together in Denver 2 weeks ago, and it was pretty awesome. Got some snow, got to hang out and work, but also just got to meet in person for the first time. So I joined the company shortly before the last contribute. So I had actually not met most of my team members. So, great way to meet people is just invite them to your hometown for a whole week, go to a hockey match, walk around the neighborhood, drink all the coffee, hang out. We cooked pizza, we cooked burgers, and most importantly, we met with founders almost every single day who are just friends locally here in Denver to talk to us about the data that they have and problems they have and how we can help them. And I think meeting those folks in real life is really powerful. We met a couple of founders who are building kind of more like direct to consumer e-commerce companies and learned a lot about the data they're dealing with, which I think as a SaaS founder, I tend to be more oriented towards software, but it was really cool to hear about Shopify and all the data challenges of supply chain. So definitely had a good time, ate a lot of good food, and we're really excited to do our next one. We'll all be at Contribute, and then we'll be hanging out a little bit afterwards as well. We also had George, who's one of the core contributors, George Solis, join us. He's one of our contributors as well, in addition to GitLab. So that was really cool. And then Emily Shario came and hung out with us. She's kind of representing, I don't know, she's like a technical advisor. I know that recently she left the data team to work for Sid as an internal strategy consultant, but I think all of you have probably interacted with Emily from time to time, and she's just a total brainiac. We love her. So that was super fun. So yeah, kind of building our team culture. For those who've maybe not heard about Meltano very much, our team is super small. It's only 6 people. So getting together in a single Airbnb is a little easier than getting all of GitLab together, but we're definitely trying to recreate some of those dynamics of, you imagine what it would be like to have to live in a house for the summer to go through Y Combinator. We kind of wanted to create some of that pressure and some of that connection that comes with just wanting to build things, not just to hit the numbers, but build it because you really like the people you're working with and you're really close to each other. And so you feel like you're kind of banded together to get something cool to happen. So it was a good time. I don't know if anyone from my team wants to chime in here or share any stories.
I'll just say it was a good time, obviously, seeing everybody in person. Some of us have met previously to contribute, but to your point, some of us hadn't. And then regarding pizza, yeah, it was the first time making pizza from scratch. So it was kind of a fun little learning lesson.
You guys made so much pizza. We could have fed like 50 people, I think. All right, let me just go back to the doc here. Oh, Sid. Yeah, you want to show something? Tweet?
Yes, please. This is a tweet, I think of yesterday, and it shows that like recent enterprise software successes, Workday and Viva. And Viva, if you haven't heard of it, but it's for biosciences, biotech. They're an absolute amazing platform. But those companies at 60 million of revenue, so like where we were not so long ago, 50% services. So 50% like making the software work for people. So this is not like helping people to onboard on your software with services is not necessarily a bad pattern. Workday and Viva has been amazing successes as companies, and I think it's great that we're helping people more, and it's something that doesn't scale, but it's not that it doesn't scale for the first 100 customers. At like year 10, when you're at $1 billion, maybe then it should be a little less. But in the beginning, it's not bad to have to hire 100 people to help everyone on board. It's a very sustainable and a pattern that's shown great success. The other thing I want to highlight is that we're doing SaaS with single instances, and that might also not be very technologically pleasing, but that's exactly what some other players in the data business intelligence sphere are doing. We had amazing exits. So also that is not necessarily a bad thing. The only companies that fail are the companies that don't get enough usage. So that is the first thing, and I'm super excited about this new direction Danielle choose.
Thank you. We're excited too. It just feels good to be talking to users. I think we're out of questions here. So given that, I think I should go ahead and wrap it up. Unless there are any final questions, I'll keep an eye out. But thank you so much, everyone. You're awesome. Thanks for those who let me shout out their names. Hi, Kyla. Hi, everyone. We look forward to talking to you in a few more weeks. And if we don't see you, happy holidays.